The overseer's menacing scowl watched over all of you. Every moment, glance, and breath you took. You could be robbed of your clothes and paraded round town if the overseer said so. You could be beaten raw with leather or metal if the overseer demanded it. You could be branded with hot iron, a mark of shame as much as pain, at the overseer's bidding.
Shalom. First of all, let's start off by giving all glory and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakatash. Double honor to teachers, elders, and apostles of great millstone, likewise brothers, but on this truth. Faithfully, fearlessly feeding the sheep, and to brothers and sisters tuning in. Shalom. Today's lesson title: Reward her, Edom, as she rewarded you. 1,000 years of hell for Edomites. And in case you don't know, hell is a condition. We, the true biblical Hebrew Israelites that the Bible speaks of, whose seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, so-called blacks, Native Americans, and Latinos, and the speckled birds, are living in hell. That's right. This is hell. So Esau, or the Edomites, they're going to have 1,000 years of hell in the kingdom to come. Now, you saw in that opening clip, okay, it goes into a bit of, the judgments or the punishments, issued on Jakes from these Edomites while we were in slavery, which we are still in captivity here in Great Babylon, America. And when you talk about how that is in the scriptures, pursuant to Deuteronomy 28, okay, we have the true name of the Son and the Father, which these other Hebrew Israelite camps called there, and they refuse to teach the people the names that they would need to call in the time of Jacob's trouble, because they cannot grasp, and most people here, okay, and I'm talking about the biblical Hebrew Israelites here in Great Babylon, America, cannot grasp or associate, okay, slavery and prophecy. The fact that Esau, during the Renaissance period, rebuilt what we know is the second Roman evolution. Okay, we're living in Rome all over again. Spiritual Sodom in Egypt. They can't associate it. They won't believe it, which is the reason why they hold on to Jesus, the white man's ideologies, and they refuse. Okay, let's go back into the book of Malachi 1 and 4, because what you see here today and where we're living right now, the things that Jakes are enjoying in the life that they want to cling on to, okay, Esau built it, but at what cost?
Through coercion, humiliation, and racial supremacy, slavery would cost the first African Americans and their descendants today.
And that cost was us, the slavery and the harsh treatment that we endure. And I was thinking about this today, and so I typed into Google, and this is what AI gave me: bad things that were done to slaves in America. So I'm going to go through this, read it, and I have some clips that I'm going to show you, because many people, they need to see evidence. They don't want to hear your voice, and that's fine. I'm nobody. But you need to understand, okay, there's a price for Esau to pay for what he has done to us and the things that he's done to us. This is Malachi 1 and 4, and reads, "Whereas Edom said, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus said the Lord of hosts, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, had indignation forever." Okay, border of wickedness. Everything this man has done is wickedness.
Today we examine the punishments used on slaves of the antebellum. For slaves in the antebellum, public humiliation was pervasive. Punishments and humiliation were grimly intertwined. What could be a punishment for one individual could stand as a warning and threat to others. Furthermore, so often physical punishment would be delivered to reassert the racial supremacist order. It is frankly a fallacy to present slave punishment and humiliation as separate matters. Slaves could be stripped naked and paraded through the streets following physical punishment, debasing the individual but also as a latent threat to their fellow enslaved. Collars could be placed on slaves, a visible and loud act of debasement that, ironically, would not aid their all-important forced labor. Shackling of the hands and feet of male slaves was rife in the antebellum. Survivor accounts include instances of runaway slaves being captured and forced to wear a bell or pillory for a whole year. Public humiliation was part of the very design of the antebellum and slavery-funded society. For enslaved persons, it was inescapable.
When you look at that word, indignation, and this is the AI overview, it says, in the Bible, indignation generally refers to a strong feeling of anger, often mingled with contempt, disgust, or abhorrence, aroused by something considered unjust, offensive, and morally wrong. Everything that this man has done to us has been unjust, offensive, and morally wrong in the eyes of Yahweh Shem Shai, and to those of us that are awake in this truth. It can be a response to personal offense or reaction to injustice or evil. The Bible distinguishes between righteous indignation, so the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai has righteous indignation, perfect hatred, righteous hatred, which aligns with powers, character, and holiness, and unrighteous indignation, which is rooted in selfish motive. When you look at Malachi, what did the Edomites say? We are impoverished, but we will return and rebuild the desolate places. They will rebuild the Roman Empire all over again. This is Rome 2.0, much stronger than before. Much stronger than before, okay, with all of the technical advancement that they have. Now, as I said, I'm gonna go through this article, of course, scriptures, and then you're gonna see footages concerning, these things that have been done to us. Okay, now we don't have memories of these, but even in this modern time right now, we can see, okay, how cruel this man can be. It says, atrocities inflicted upon enslaved people in America. The institution of slavery in America was built upon and sustained by horrific acts of cruelty and brutality, dehumanizing enslaved individuals in every conceivable way. This is their AI, okay? This is their AI. I didn't write this. Here are some of the most common and devastating ways enslaved people were harmed. Physical violence and torture, and this is what Esau loves. Whippings, beatings, and floggings was a constant reality used in forced work, suppress resistance, and maintain control. Runaway slaves faced particularly brutal punishments upon recapture, including severe beatings, public shaming, and even torture. Mutilation, branding, and other disfigurement were used to mark and control enslaved individuals. Some slave holders engage in extreme forms of torture, even resorting to murder in some cases. So Esau would lose his cool and sometimes, murder Jake. Living conditions were deplorable, with cramped and unsanitary slave quarters, inadequate food, and limited access to medical care, contributing to rampant disease and weakened immune system.
From the earliest days of the 13 British colonies, starting in 1526, chattel slavery was practiced in what would become the United States of America. Slavery of Africans and African Americans would take hold in large from the 1600s until the end of the Civil War in 1865. Across this period, slavery was a legally sanctioned practice, with enslaved persons considered property. When the United States Constitution was drafted in 1789, the term slavery was not used, but the 3/5 Compromise provided slave owners with excessive political power, enlarging powers in many Southern legislatures. The term 3/5 has become symbolic for many of the lessened legal views of the enslaved, that they were only seen in American law as 3/5 of a person. There can be no mistake, the conditions of slavery were brutal, and it would take an entire civil war for slaves to be granted rights or freedoms. The branding of enslaved persons was commonplace across the United States. An entire strand of the abolitionist movement was based on the practice of branding, that slaves were being branded and mutilated in the same vein as livestock. Remarkably, the practice itself held two purposes. Firstly, as a shaming mark of property that served to separate the enslaved from the master population. This branding would be done with a hot iron on the enslaved person's skin, a scar for life. Secondly, and predominantly from the 19th century onwards as a form of punishment. Chillingly, the mutilation of slaves through the removal of teeth or ears took place well into 1830, which sardonically made a marker for identification should they flee. Many runaway slaves were subject to forms of branding as a punishment for the attempt. These would include dog bites and even shotgun blasts from their captors.
You all wonder why we have so much specialized illnesses towards Jakes right now, okay? Because it's hereditary, it's passed down. We are right now in our weakest state. And brothers would often talk about just all the ailments that's plaguing them, even though we eat the best way we can or work out and exercise like that. Okay, but we live in a ecology, okay, ecological system, Great Babylon America, that is contaminated. It's contaminated for us, okay? And people, they really buck up against this. I was watching the elder apostle Ramla today, and he was talking about just teach the word, okay? Why get into all that flashy stuff out there, concerning these other camps that are out there that are really trying to appease their audience or appease man, so to speak, okay? They're worried about the likes and the view counts and, padding their pockets or whatever the case is like that, okay? But here's what we're supposed to do, okay? This is Ezekiel 35 and verse 1 reads, "Moreover, the word of the Lord Yahweh Shai came to me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it. And say unto it, Thus said the Lord power, Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord Yahweh Shai." And this is part of that indignation, okay, the disgust of Esau and how he rebuilt the desolate places on the blood of the children of Israel.
And Deep South remained a slave society. Ultimately, for the South, an entire economic system had formed through the forced labor of African slaves. Even with the Atlantic slave trade's abolition in 1808, the South's economy had become heavily dependent on the enslaved labor force, most prominent in cotton production and agriculture. As a result, smuggling slaves and slave breeding would become regular in the United States until the 1860s. These two Americas, with polar opposite positions on the practice of slavery, would divide the country into slave states and free states. Come the 1850s, a cotton-growing, enriched South that saw slavery as a positive good threatened to secede from the Union.
And yet still, despite having all of this proof and evidence out there, you Jakes refuse to repent. You refuse to accept the fact that you are the true biblical Hebrew Israelite that the Bible speaks of. These judgments were sent upon us by the Lord Yahweh Shai. Okay? But there is also a price that Esau, the Edomite, the so-called white man, has to pay. Hence the 1,000 years of hell that they are going to face, which is going to be a condition, not some everlasting burning fire, okay, which Christianity teaches you, okay? It says, with sexual exploitation and abuse. Enslaved women were particularly vulnerable to sexual assault and rape by slaveholders, overseers, and other white men who saw them as objects rather than human beings. This exploitation often led to forced pregnancies and the birth of mixed children who were still born into slavery, demonstrating the lack of protection and control enslaved women had over their own bodies and families. The practice of slave breeding, where enslaved individuals were forced to reproduce to create more enslaved people for sale, was widespread, especially in states like Virginia and Maryland. So you can see we were like cattle to them. Cattle, okay? We were not human to them. Cattle. Enslaved men were also subject to sexual abuse and assault, okay, buck breaking, although documentation of these instances is less common than for women, because the Esau, okay, his kingdom is referred to as Sodom, okay, Sodomites, and Egypt, which is synonymous with slavery. So faggots and slavery, that's what America is really referred to in the scriptures. But see, Esau tries to hide that, but he really can't hide it, because their continence is that of sissies and fags. So when we say to Esau, your cities, your whole rebuilding of Rome is going to be destroyed, we're not saying this because of just hate towards them. This is scriptural. In fact, when you go into Jeremiah 49:12, because Jakes, they don't want Esau to get that punishment. They don't want Esau to go through what we went through. They really would like to forgive and forget and move forward. Yes, so Jake can forgive each other and forget, any trespasses. Okay, which shows that we are under the curse. Okay, this is Jeremiah 49:12. It reads, "For thus said the Lord Yahweh Shemashai, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup had surely drunken, and art thou he that should altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it." You're going to get it. This is the reason why later on, as I read, you have to be rewarded.
On any plantation, an overseer had the authority to commit violence upon enslaved people. Typically, this was done with a whip made of cowskin or a lash made of metal. Coercion through beatings was a matter entirely at an overseer's behest. Working too slow, insubordination, leaving without permission, or for no reason at all. Slaves who resisted their captivity, who ran away, should they survive, stood to have the most brutal of punishment.
These Edomites have to be rewarded. You think of the things that they have done to us. Why would you not want to cry on to Yahweh Shai to judge your oppressor, your murderer, your rapist? Huh? Why wouldn't you want to? They wonder why we have so much zeal, why we stand boldly and we speak. We now have hope. We now know that our power put us in those positions and told us basically, you repent, I will save you in a time when this man is really going to come and with great wrath on this earth, which the Lord Yahweh Shemashai is putting that spirit in him. Okay? This is it says psychological and emotional trauma. The constant threat of violence, separation from family, and the denial of basic human rights inflicted deep psychological wounds and emotional scars. Family will often separate or sale, leaving individuals with immense grief, loss, and a lack of family support. What people have gone through this? We are the only ones with this. I can't find it anywhere with AI where anybody else has gone through this. Yeah, you had war and you might have, captures, you prisoners of wars and all that stuff like that, but they never have gone through centuries of this. We are the only ones. The systematic suppression of education and denial of intellectual development further dehumanized enslaved people and limited their opportunities. The effect of this trauma is still felt by many African Americans today, as evidenced by the concept of post-traumatic slave syndrome. Okay? Post-traumatic slave syndrome. Yes, though, you'll often hear them say, well, why don't you forget about it and move on? That was a long time ago. I didn't put you in slavery. They try to actually, have a case or an argument against it. And this is what, Jakes them, they also fall for that too. Okay? So never mind the beatings, the rapes, the buck breaking, the psychological warfare that Esau plays with us. And this is all throughout slavery, but this is constantly going on right now. Okay? This is going on right now. You go into Revelation 18:6, we are told what we are going to do with these Edomites in the kingdom of heaven. It says, reward her even as she rewarded you, double unto her, double according to her works, in the cup which she had filled to her double. Just like the Lord Yahweh Shemashai, Adel Mashiach, okay, send us out on the highway in the Bible on this unicorn, pursuing Ezekiel 35 and Cyrus 1, where we had to go and preach, okay, this gospel, and also let the Edomites know their fate. Let the heathens know their fate, which is going to be slavery, because they participated in our downfall and also our torture and pillaging, and they took full advantage of Esau, okay, having us subjected to this type of treatment. So that was a command. That was a command. Okay, we are commanded to reward these Edomites double. Okay, and I don't know about you, Jakes, but I constantly think about it all the time. What am I going to do with that new body with these Edomites?
Violence of the Ku Klux Klan was wanton, and violent assaults on persons of color were rife in the South. Following the Reconstruction era was the passage of Jim Crow laws, which racially segregated the southern United States from the 1870s to the 1960s. Separating facilities and institutes made a mockery of emancipation, with African Americans always receiving an inferior deal, in what many see as the nadir of America's race relations. Jim Crow has come to be seen as an institutionalization of second-class citizenship for persons of color. The civil rights movement of the 1960s would overturn Jim Crow and bring voting rights for African Americans. Yet many challenges remain to this day. Many commentators see American schools as segregated today as they were before the passage of Brown v. Board of Education. The Black Lives Matter movement has shown the world that provincial safety is no guarantee to African Americans today. Across its populace, politics, and culture, a country built on the forced labor of slavery shows its heavy burden to this very day. Arguably the most profound of punishments inflicted on enslaved persons was not even a direct action, but an afterthought and byproduct of the system they were forced into. In a course of action that would separate millions of people and generations to come from their heritage, the separation of families was the norm for enslaved arrivals in North America. Children would be separated from their parents, wives from their husbands on disembarking, and this practice would continue beyond. Pregnant slaves were strikingly vulnerable to this. With enslaved persons being viewed as property, so were their children. Numerous accounts detail newborn babies born on plantations being taken from mothers at birth. This would only result in the children in question being sold or traded like commodities. Slave owners had no legal ramifications to respect the family unit or marital bed of slaves. Any could be sold or transferred to new owners, taken as concubines against their will. Arrival in the United States meant the loss of family and identity for those who survived the Middle Passage. This is History on Fleek, and we'll see you next time.
The things that I'm going to do, because you see throughout these video clips here, I mean, Esau engineered a whole lot of torture, tactics against us. Lot of stuff against us. How is it that how any Hebrew Israelite in their right mind, which you're not, that's why the Lord said you're sick from the head to the foot. You're sick. How could you in your right mind allow this doggone devil, these Edomites, to get away with it when you will have the ability to subject them to double what they've given you? How could you in your right mind don't want to do that, don't want to participate in that? You want to share the heavenly kingdom with them equally, when he has never shared his kingdom, this crap, with you equally. Throughout the videos, it tells you what we will consider 3/5 of a man, a property. Okay? This is Isaiah 14:21 reads, "Prepare slaughter for his children and for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. But rise up against them, said the Lord of hosts, Yahweh Bashim Shai, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant and son and nephew, said the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Shai." Okay? So, leading up to them going into their captivity, they're going to experience a downfall of their society. Okay? Whether they're going to clash with each other, okay, or in the fact that you're going to have these other nations come up against them, along with the 2/3 who's going to be cut off, who's going to be used to really put terror on them. But then we are going to put terror. Okay? You Edomites that are going to come out and go, well, I didn't have anything to do with it. What it says here, prepare slaughter for children for the iniquity of their fathers, for the wickedness of your fathers. You are your fathers. There's no excuse. We paid for it. We got that cup. We drank from it. Going back to this, it says medical exploitation. Enslaved individuals are often subject to inhumane medical experimentation without their consent, as their bodies were seen as property for scientific study, which is right now. You have the prison system where they're doing that right now. And the fact that they're feeding you fluoride in the water and a whole other things is still going on. And none of us consent to it. It says instances like the experiment of Dr. J. Marion Sims, who performed gynecology surgeries on enslaved women without anesthesia, highlight the blatant disregard for the pain and suffering of enslaved people. Okay, and it would go on to say that this list is not exhaustive, and the suffering endured by enslaved people in America was immense and multifaceted. So it was very creative. Okay. The denial of their humanity and the constant threat of violence and separation from loved ones left an indelible mark on individuals and generation with lasting repercussions that continue to impact society today. All right. So this is what the AI said. The scriptures have that. Okay. You go to Isaiah 14:2, it reads, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place in the house of Israel, shall possess them in the land of the Lord Yahweh for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressor. Who's their oppressor? Certainly it's not the Moabites, nor the Ammonites, not the Elamites, nor the Ishmaelites, or the Hamites. It's the Edomites. Okay? So we abide in time until the Mashiach returns to decimate this place. Okay? And he gives us those new bodies and have the ability to come and set this earth straight, particularly get these Edomites, their first day of slavery when we grab those doggone elites of those holes, pursuant to Jeremiah 16:16. Okay? And we can think of many things that we would like to do, right now, but with those new bodies, our imagination is going to be on the next level. The thing about it is, we're going to be able to do it. Just like Esau is able to do what he wants to do to us right now, we are going to be able to do it on a much greater scale. Let's close over the book of Obadiah 1:10. And it reads, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, the 12 tribe of Israel, you Edomites, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. So you're not going to have the inheritance of the kingdom of heaven. You're going to be a slave, a property, and then the Lord Yahweh is going to eliminate you out of it. And it doesn't matter if the 2/3 or any nigger camps out there teaching otherwise or trying to buddy up with you, suck up to you, worship your God, call onto your God name. Okay? It doesn't matter. It's what the scripture said. We have the evidence. We have the proof. Your shame. We're going to constantly remind you of how horrible you are and how horrible you've been to us. We will never forget. And this is that anger, okay, that we, and I'm going to speak for myself, live it on a constant daily basis, okay? And we're gonna hold a fort here, preaching this gospel and this truth, exposing your wicked ass until our Mashiach returns, because we're gonna all be working, Lord willing, and you will not get a moment's rest. And we're gonna complain every day to the Lord Yahweh Shai. I know I want to give you that cup double. I really want to pass that cup on to your ass. So Lord willing, the elect was edified. Let's close by giving all great honor to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahushai Ba'Shem, Arkakadash, Shalom.